Good afternoon, Dr. JP. The Supreme Court delivered a landmark verdict yesterday, making it mandatory for the parties to declare the criminal candidates or candidates with criminal records out in the public and to Election Commission. Do you welcome this decision? And is this enough for us to reform the system?
Keshav, undoubtedly it's a welcome judgment. Any lover of democracy would certainly want information to be available to people, the criminal antecedents and other record available to people, and it will certainly help. But it's not a landmark judgment. It will not bring about a revolution. In India, we indulge in hyperbole everywhere. By this yardstick, we must have had 100 revolutions by now because of Supreme Court verdicts. But there is no revolution in India. Things simply are not changing enough in our polity. Our political process is somewhat stable and inert. So while I welcome it, I want all of us to understand that it is just one step, helpful. It's not a solution. It's not a panacea. We must look at the reasons behind the problems. It was Lok Satta movement that generated this pressure in the country in 1998-99 by creating Election Watch movement, and as a part of that, this whole disclosure of candidate details. When in Andhra Pradesh at that time in 99 elections, and Lok Satta did enormous exercise with a very high-level team of a former Chief Justice, several legal luminaries, justices of courts, former secretaries to Government of India, police officials of high standing, eminent public men and women. They all sat together. We established certain standards for disclosure of candidate details. And we asked the public to give us feedback, public and media, very confidential feedback. The standards were made public. And we verified each statement made by the public in relation to the yardstick, and then we checked the evidence and came out with the determination of the candidates with criminal record. It sent shockwaves across the country. The reason we did that was not because it's a panacea, but because the criminal politics is a soft underbelly of the system. It's a way of looking at our political system and figuring out what needs to be done to set things right. Because nobody can defend criminalization of politics. No party leader, no prime minister, no chief minister, no MLA, MP can say, yes, it's perfectly all right to have criminals in politics. It is self-evident. But once you go into a systematic process, a credible process, an objective process, a verifiable process, then it opens up many avenues for change. That is why we fought for that. As a result, because many sister organizations, they went to courts, and in 2003, when the Supreme Court gave a direction, Lok Satta again led a movement. We fought a valiant battle to make the disclosure mandatory, non-disclosure a ground for disqualification, rejection of the nomination. And when the government failed to do that, again we went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court gave a final verdict that it's mandatory and non-disclosure will lead to disqualification. That's where we are. And therefore, if Supreme Court now extends the principle and says, let the parties disclose at the time of nomination of candidates themselves, not only the candidate filing a nomination, it's one more step. Good. It also builds pressure on the political parties. Welcome. But we must realize two things. Number one, if merely mechanically we go into so-called criminal record, without understanding the purpose and without understanding what is truly criminal, if you are too technical, then the purpose is lost and people lose faith in the process. Let me give one example. Take Mr. Sirovaram Sudhakar Reddy. He was the General Secretary of CPI. He probably still is, I'm not very sure at this point of time. A very prominent leader in CPI. He was an MP some years ago from Telangana. And he is an outstanding human being and an outstanding leader. You may disagree with him on policies. I disagree with him on many policies. But as a political leader, he has a spotless record. But because he had some technical offences pending against him, violation of some prohibitory orders during a people's movement, in India these things are common. With great fanfare, civil society at the national level projected his name as Sudhakar Reddy having a criminal record. Now the moment you see things like that and over-publicized without any discrimination and discernment, people lose faith in the process. If Sudhakar Reddy is a criminal, everybody can be a criminal. What's wrong? Just to give an example. Therefore, a tool must be used very wisely, very smartly, not mechanically, not foolishly. the purpose is otherwise defeated. But the second part is, even if the tool is used well, it's only to generate a discussion as a starting point. If you don't go into the underlying causes and vilify politicians, political process and parties, you have become part of the problem. I'm saying this with great sense of responsibility. Whether it's a citizenry, civil society, media or institutions of state, if we do not go into the underlying causes in a rational manner and look at solutions in a feasible manner, we have become part of the problem. Each of us vilifying the other and undermining the legitimacy of the political process will not lead to a better democracy. It actually will lead to destruction of democracy. I want each of us to understand that and therefore use it as an opportunity to look at why it is increasingly criminalized and how do you set things right.